Let me call to order the Public Improvement Commission hearing of November 5th, 2020. Our first agenda item are the hearing minutes. At the request of the Public Improvement Commission staff, the acceptance of the minutes of the PIC hearing held on October 22nd, 2020. Any questions or comments on the hearing minutes? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to accept the hearing minutes from October 22nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Moving on to the utility pole hearing continued. Our first item is on a joint petition by Verizon New England Inc. and Eversource Energy for a pole relocation within Montmorency Avenue, a public way in East Boston, to relocate one existing utility pole to be located on its northerly side at address number 24, generally east of Orion Ave. This was at its first utility pole hearing on October 22nd, 2020.
Yes, good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can, Ross.
All right. Name is Ross Bilodeau, representing Verizon New England. Like you said, this is a continuation from the last hearing. You had asked Verizon and Eversource to go in reconsider where this pole was being located, which we did. Do I have permission to share my screen?
You do.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
We can.
Okay. Originally, we were looking to relocate this pole to the east 8 feet, which would have put it in front of number 24. The way the pole sits now, it's right on the property line between the two homes. Well, we have decided to move it 30 feet in the opposite direction, which would keep it in front of number 20, who is the one asking for the pole move to accommodate their driveway. So at a joint meeting out there with both Verizon and Eversource, and this is the solution we came up with.
Great. And the property owner at 20 Montmorency is aware of this?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments by members of the commission? Todd or Robbie?
We're all set on this. We appreciate Verizon's.
Any members of the public?
None.
If you're a member of the public who's interested in commenting on this, either feel free to put your name in the chat or unmute yourself and introduce yourself. All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item. I do think, Joe, you mentioned earlier that you may want to abstain. I just defer to you on that.
I'm not.
Yes, please. I'd just like to note for the record, for this vote only, I will abstain from voting. Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure that they can hear me.
Thanks so much, Commissioner. All right, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
He throws it to me.
I'll make a motion to approve a pole relocation on Montmorency Avenue as read into the record by the chair.
To me, like they're not, bubbling up when I speak.
Okay.
Sorry, Brian, is
And I
Brian?
can use my laptops.
Got it.
No, I
All
can't.
right,
I can use
all in
laptops
favor?
if I need to.
Aye.
Rather than
Aye.
this, but I have been using this.
So moved. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next item, a public hearing continued on a petition by Verizon New England Inc. for a grant of location with lead company status and no participants to install a new telecommunication conduit with city shadow within the following public ways in Roxbury. The locations are Amory Street, generally south of Center Street, the Amory Street connector, east of Amory Street, Center Road at Amory Street. This was new business on October 8th, 2020, had its first public hearing on October 22nd, 2020. And this is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repairs Plan, Gordon Avenue, Child Street, Brayburn Road, Hale Street, Hyde Park Ave, Hyde Park, 4 sheets dated September 18th, 2020.
All right, again, my name is Ross Bilodeau, representing Verizon New England. Like you stated, this was originally presented 2 weeks ago. You had asked us to go back and work with Zach a little more regarding any future changes and projects and making sure that this project would not be impacted. We did so, and he came back and he told us that the way the conduit was proposed right now would be right in the middle of the existing curb line. The best solution we came up with was to push that conduit a little more into the street the best we can, while also minimizing, crossing as many other utilities as we can out there. I don't have an updated plan to present. I can present the original one.
That would be great, and it's helpful to know, and Par, you might be able to confirm this, just sort of that, or Todd, that we've gotten the right feedback on how this plan connects with some of the proposed public works projects.
Chief, the punchline, and Ross, this is mostly for your benefit. Appreciate the outreach which you have done. That's very commendable on your part. The city's desire is to try and minimize any drama in the future when we are going to rebuild that roadway. Because as you should know, and for the 1,000th time, I will put it on the record, where when the city has to do roadway reconstruction work, any and all utilities will have to move at the expense of the utilities and to meet our timeline needs. So I'm trying to minimize any future drama, but I appreciate all that you have done to try and find that ideal location so that you will not have to incur digging and installing your utilities twice. Okay? So that was the singular interest on my part, not for the city's inability to do our work, because when I have to rebuild a street, all utilities will be adjusted at the expense of the utilities. That's the right which the city has. I just don't like wasting anyone's money. Okay, so that was the purpose of that comment. It's not just Emery Street, Ross, it is the interface point between Emery Street and Center Street. Right now, that little area needs to be properly defined in terms of how, from an urban design perspective. So as long as you and Verizon is recognizing the fact that you all are picking the best location, and if that location needs to be adjusted, we will do our best to minimize any future adjustments on your part. But if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. As long as we are both on the same page, I have no further comments.
Okay.
Are we both on the same page, Ross?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Par. Thanks, Ross. Ross, other things you want to cover with the this proposal?
Not at this time. I think that's good.
All right. Any other questions or comments by members of the commission? Todd or Avi?
We're all set. I will note that there was an administrative error. The plan reference on the agenda is incorrect, but that's a minor technicality.
Thanks so much, Todd. And so the actual set of plans is obviously specific to Amory Street and not the set of streets that I had read out initially. Any questions or comments by members of the public?
I do not see any.
All right, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve a grant of location petition by Verizon New England for Amory Street Connector, and Center Road as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thanks so much, Russ.
Thank you again.
Moving on to new business, and just wanted to note that a few items that had been on the original agenda for new business are not on for this particular hearing and will likely be on for 2 weeks from now. And so we have just 3 items with new business: Washington Street, West 8th Street, and then Stewart Church and Shaman. So our first item of new business is 545 Washington Street in Boston proper. A projection license on a petition by Back Deck Inc. doing business as French Quarter.
Hello, this is Brad Fredericks with French Quarter, joined with by Stuart Pitchell of SRP Signs, a sign manufacturer. Trying to put a sign on 545 Washington Street, currently operating as French Quarter. Used to be the Salvatore's location.
Drift, do you want to walk us through the plan?
We don't have the ability to put it up here. Todd, can you put it up?
You got it.
Looks like he's pulling it up. Brad.
there. There you go.
Thank you.
Stuart, do you want to say anything on this sign?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? I don't even know if I've never used this particular.
we can, Stuart.
Oh,
Yep.
Great. This is a sort of it's considered sort of a blade sign. It's a double-sided sign, sort of triangular, as you see in plan. It's all open inside. It's that triangle is open to the air, and so it's sort of like two signs that meet in the middle, right? And they project over the sidewalk. I can't read from here, but I know we kept it within what it needed to be, which I think is 80 inches. I can't read it. I happen to be on my cell phone, unfortunately, so the best I can.
No problem. It is showing as projecting out 80 inches of the 120-inch
Yeah.
wide sidewalk.
So, I mean, the sign, we're bolting it to existing, we're trying to use all existing holes from, we met with, what was it, Landmarks, and we're trying to make no new holes in the larger slabs of granite. We're going into mortar joints, and there's a lot of opportunity for existing holes that we can use with epoxy. And then, let's see. So I don't know if you want me to talk about the way the sign lights up or anything like that, but we tried to keep the design. Well, I didn't design it. We're just the fabricators, but it's designed, with the spirit of the French Quarter, as well as in New Orleans, as well as what we see in the theater district right there next door, at the Paramount and all that stuff. And Brad, you could probably talk about the original signage that was on that building 50 years ago. It's sort of in keeping with some of that as well.
Stuart, is the lighting dynamic or is it static?
No, static.
Okay. And then, and this may be noted, I might just miss it and defer to Todd and Avi and Par about the necessity of it, but is the sign itself heat traced and internally drained?
You're asking if it's heat traced?
Yep.
Well, we don't think it's necessary, but we can do it if it needs to be done. I mean, the way we heat trace it is, the kind of stuff that you use on roofs. That's just a wire that heats up. If we don't have to do it, we won't do it. We were kind of hoping to put it up and see if it's a problem and then add it. But if it's a requirement of the board, then we'll make it happen now. It's only 14 inches wide. There's not going to be a lot of buildup and but I understand it is over the public way. So whatever you guys decide.
Go ahead, Par.
Can you hear me? Stuart, can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Sorry, Stuart. I don't think in my excitement listening to your presentation whether I heard you introduce yourself.
Oh, I apologize. My name is Stuart Pitchell, and I own the sign company, SRP Sign Corporation, that
Thank you,
is
Stuart.
fabricating the sign.
And the sign is just a two-sided sign where there's
It's
like
a
a big part of the sign that is overhanging. There's no structure. I'm just trying to understand because you have a top view and I don't know whether there's a side view. But I'm just trying to understand the need for any heat tracing. I don't want you to do it if it doesn't need to be done. The purpose of the heat tracing is to ensure that icicles don't form.
Yes,
So
I understand.
So you are the sign manufacturer, but niche engineering needs to testify whether your design is sufficient in terms of the concerns PIC has, because I was trying to figure out who signed the plans, and I believe it is John Schmidt. So, Mr. Fredericks, if you could be ever so kind to have someone from niche engineering test to that particular site. Hearing, it's perfect.
I unfortunately only could understand about 50% of what you were saying. I think that my connection's not that great or something, but.
Stuart or Brad, I think, and Par, if I'm wrong, we'll need niche engineering for the public hearing to affirm whether or not this needs to be heat traced
Okay.
and internally drained.
Yes,
Is that right, Par?
So is that something that we could, I know that this is a sort of a preliminary meeting and then we go on to the actual business. Is that, I think, the way it works?
Correct.
So is that something that we could bring, to or provide for the next meeting with that?
That is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll So Brad, we can work on that, right?
So we'll just have Niche Engineering take a look at that.
Yeah, this is Chris
Okay.
Honey with Mitch.
hey,
John
Chris.
is not on the call this morning, but I have these notes down. I'll talk to him about that. We
Oh,
can figure out what we need to do.
And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, if John's determination is that this requires it to be heat traced and internally drained, then Brad and Stuart, you should come to the public hearing with that change in the plans.
Okay.
I'll get the details to point that out.
Paul, is that correct?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, other questions or comments on this? All right, Todd, Robbie,
All set?
members of the public?
I see none.
All right, is 2 weeks enough time for you, Brad and Stuart?
Yes, certainly. Yes.
Perfect, we'll see you at the public hearing then on November 19th.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys. We really appreciate your time.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Our next item of new business is 177 West 8th Street, Lark Street, South Boston, specific repairs on a petition by Lark Street Better Built LLC.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi. Good members of the board, thank you very much for hearing me today. My name is Doug Stefanov. I'm the architect representing Steve Hill at 177 West 8th Street in South Boston. We come before you with a petition to create a 36-foot wide curb cut to serve 4 parking spaces for a new 3-family building planned on the corner of Lark Street and West 8th Street in South Boston. This curb cut would allow access to 4 on-grade parking spaces on the first floor of the building. I can bring up my site plan if you'd like.
Sure, Doug, that'd be great.
Okay, let me bring it. Does this show?
It does not yet. If you're having trouble doing it, we can also bring up the site plan.
Yes, please, if you could. Let's see, present now.
Todd or Robbie, do you mind presenting? Thanks, Abby.
Oh, I found it. Okay. Let's see here.
Nope. You can do it. That's fine.
How's that?
We see that you pulled it up, but it's very, very small, at least from, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. I'm
No, it's
not
fine.
familiar. So this is updated. We still have a few corrections as requested recently, but this does show, let me zoom in a little bit there for you. The curb cut, we have a 5-foot, 0.47 wide curb. So Lark Street is a small side street in South Boston. There's parking on the opposite side of the street. I'm still working with the civil engineer to show a turning radius. There's no parking on our side. There was an existing single family there before. 8th Street has, as you can see, we have a fire hydrant and a light pole, both that would remain in place, and a handicap ramp on the corner. The intent here, the neighbors were concerned about parking, and this allows for cars to turn into the 4 spaces that would exist between the curbs, as you see.
One thing, and I definitely defer to Amy on this, Lark Street is fairly narrow, and whatever is determined here for the curb cut,
Yeah.
BTD, it should not, we will not change, and Amy, tell me if I'm off on this, we will not change the parking rules on the, what is the south side of the street to
That's
accommodate.
exactly what I've asked for, right?
Can you hear,
So
like,
it was
presenting?
that I've asked for confirmation that we do not need to remove existing parking in order to make this curb cut.
Yes,
Perfect.
I have received that, and I'm waiting for my engineer to provide me a drawing to show that.
Great. And
I
you think
don't-
you'll have that within 2 weeks?
Yes, I can have that within 2 weeks,
Perfect.
if not sooner,
Great.
much sooner.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug. Other questions or comments on this?
Mr. Stepanov, can you hear me? I'm a little bit away from the microphone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a couple of minor, extremely minor issues, and Mr. Stepanov, you as an architect will catch on to what I'm saying very quickly. Some of the dimensions that has been put for these plans by your civil engineer shows the level of accuracy that is unrealistic. Having a driveway opening for 36.84 translates to 10.02 inches. So could you please instruct your not your architect, you are the architect, your civil engineer to put dimensions that are more realistic of what is actually going to get built over there. On a 30-foot right-of-way, we normally have 2 5-foot sidewalks, and I'll continue to seek guidance from my PIC staff as to what that dimension need to be. It seems like it is the output of a CAD, AutoCAD generated plans without doing a reality check as to what the numbers needs to be. Okay?
Okay, you mean like standard width of parking spaces?
No, standard, because we don't build, excuse me, there seems to be too much noise.
No, I hear you. I'm good.
A
Parra, we-
whole number, right? 36 feet, 38 feet, 40 feet, not
Oh,
3 decimal places, tolerance between your driveway dimensions, just so a rational number.
all right. Okay, sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
Have an engineer look at that number and do a reality check. I think Ms. Cording said it far more eloquently.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing just to check in the interim, the ramp that is at the corner of your property,
Yes.
whether that needs to be brought into compliance, whether the bollards, I think, are on the corner of that property, whether those are going to be retained. You can just sort of work with the PIC staff on that.
Well, yeah, just to mention, I did get comments back from Sarah late, and so the plan is the bollards will be removed, the ramp reconstructed to
Great.
DPW specifications.
Great.
The points will be saw cut instead of tooled, and there's no handicap parking spaces adjacent to the project site. I just haven't had time to reply.
Great. Appreciate all those things.
Of course, thank you.
Amy, I have a question for you. Right now, I believe Mr. Stefanov and his team wants 3 parking spots to support this driveway entrance. Normally, we don't put 36-foot driveways for a building of this nature. I'll take my point with its absurdity. If there were 5 units with 5 ground level parkings embedded within the building, would you have a driveway opening that is 60 feet wide? So this is something which the transportation department needs to look at in terms of the driveway openings that are supported. I don't remember whether Lark Street is a one-way or a two-way street, but creating this type of driveway openings can be a little bit more challenging in terms of having uniform curb cuts for ADA purposes and a host of other things. So it's a joint public works transportation department issue of having a driveway opening of 36 feet, just so that 3 property owners, individual, can have a parking spot fed off immediately off the public right of way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's why this was kicked to PIC versus being on the driveway application. I believe that they're getting 4 vehicles in here, and it's coming down to them being side by side, and how we get them out of here. I think that maybe the transportation department and the public works department might have settled on a slightly different layout for this, but here we are. So I think that this is as tight as it's going to get and rationally get those 4 cars in there.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from members of the commission? Todd or Robbie?
There Nope, none. Thank you.
Okay. No members of the public either?
Nope.
Nope. All right, Doug, we'll see you then in 2 weeks on the 19th. That work for you?
Yeah, very good. I'll be in touch. Thank you all very much.
Yep, thanks so much.
All right, good day.
Our final item of new business is 212 Stewart Street, Church Street, and Shawmut Street. Boston proper, specific repairs and a projection license on a set of petitions by GUGV 212 Stewart Property Owning LLC.
Hello, this is, hopefully you can see me, this is Ryan Souls with the developer GUGV2,
Hey, Ryan.
212 Stewart Street, also known as Gray Star, so representing the development team and the civil engineering and architecture team are here as well, but just wanted to quickly introduce the project. This 212 Stewart is a 126 unit, 19-story residential development, currently under construction. We began construction in January, had a few months stoppage, but are now moving vertical. Just as a quick background, Greystar acquired this permitted development site in January of this year from the group that entitled and permitted it. The public realm was a major consideration in approving this and really creating kind of an entrance to the Bay Village neighborhood. As kind of transactions go, when this was all coming together, the approved site plan had to incorporate some comments from Parks and Disabilities that ultimately kind of resulted in somewhat of a kind of pieced together site plan. So we've subsequently gone back, coordinated with the Commission for Disabilities, Parks, the Bay Village Historic District Commission, to create a site plan that kind of balances the needs of all those parties and also meets the initial intent of this project really being a gateway to the Bay Village neighborhood. So I think the design team here is going to walk through the site plan updates and some of the canopy revisions to improve transparency and kind of activate the street front along Stewart Street. So I'll pass it along to them.
Great, thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. This is Chris Donnie with Ditch Engineering. So we're the civil engineer in the project. And so, like Ryan just said, this project was previously actually approved by PIC about a year ago, kind of fall 2019. We had been in front of PIC, and I think these changes, the plans are relatively similar to what was there before. There are some changes that we'll walk through today. I think I'm going to speak more to the renderings because I think they tell the story a little bit better because of the changes themselves are mostly to surface treatment, which shows the changes a little bit better. So this is just a rendering of the building from across the street, kind of next to the Motor Mart. If we go on, so this was the approved site plan more or less. We have some pavers in Church Street. So site is, we've got Stewart Street on top, Church Street is this pedestrian street here, and then Shawmut Street is the street on the south side of the building. There's existing brick sidewalk here, which will remain. There'll be some changes to that. There really are very few, if any, changes on Shawmut Street altogether. It's still included as part of the submission. Church Street itself has pavers in the middle, or had pavers in the middle with a concrete sidewalk kind of around the edges here. 4 new trees and then 2 existing trees to remain. And then there was concrete sidewalk with the permeable paver strip along Stewart Street. And then this this bump out for pedestrian access. And, this was a coordination with BTD and Active Transportation for potential bike path in the future. So the changes, as you can see, so as Ryan had pointed out, the canopies, there were originally 2 canopies, one here and one approximately here, that it's been centralized. It's just a single canopy now. And so the trees along Stewart Street have just been reconfigured so that the canopy kind of fits a little bit better along the streetscape. Similarly, along Church Street, the paving, as you can, it's changed a little bit. And then there's a new tree that has been added. So instead of 4 trees, we'll have 5 trees along this strip. There's a landscape island. This is not in the public way itself, but there's now a landscape island adjacent to the building. So that concrete path to travel will just run next to that, and then we'll have a concrete area in front of the building for access. And like I said, there's really very few changes, or really no changes at all along Shawmut Street itself. Here's a rendering kind of from above, taking a look at it. We've got the revised trees along Stewart Street, canopy coming off the building, new trees and paving on Church Street, and then street level. This is standing on the corner of Shawmut and Church, just looking at the trees and the streetscape there. You can see the sidewalk with the pedestrian ramp going up along there. I'm just going to run through the PIC plans. This is just a rendering of the canopy. It's sloping back towards the building, internally drained, heat traced, and it extends precisely 2/3 the width of the sidewalk. So that's what I've got. So we got any questions or any more details?
Chris, a pair of questions. So it looks like, and tell me if I'm off on this, basically a lot of the furnishing zones and some of the sections within the Church Street pedestrian way are sort of with a tan brick. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, and I think we have Sasaki Landscape Architecture on the phone.
Yep.
I think they could speak to the paving materials.
I sort of just want to make sure that anything where that's sort of with a non-standard material is sort of covered by the LMI that presumably it'll be for this project. Is that right?
Yes, and so it's the same pavers. They may have a slightly different layout than they were before, but the pavers themselves, I mean, the LMI will have to be revised just to take into account these changes, but they were previously covered under that. They'll be covered under the revised.
And then the one thing which would ask you to do between now and the public hearing on both Shawmut Street and on Church Street, or at least Shawmut Street, I think Church Street as well, the lamp fixtures are gas. And we had talked sort of in a previous PIC hearing about the idea of having essentially the same or a near identical or identical sort of historic fixture, but rather than having gas, exploring whether there could be an LED lamp instead, that sort of mimics the gas mantles that exist today. If you can have that conversation with our street lighting division, it's something which for maintenance reasons and environmental reasons we are very interested in pursuing, and that seems like a good location to do it, particularly given some of, I think, the previous interest of Bay Village in that.
Sure. Yeah, we will. I mean, we've talked to street lighting about that, and we're currently showing the gas street lights, but we can reopen that conversation.
Right. I know that I think Joe, or anyway, I think you've heard already from street lighting that what you have currently is fine. I think we just want to restart that conversation just between now and the public hearing about the idea of the potential conversion.
Sure.
I'd also say for the public hearing, it would be nice to get, like, there's a lot of information here that was already approved. So just what's the difference? Because a lot of this looks the same. I'm getting the impression that this is mainly a landscaping change, but it'd be nice to understand specifically what is different from what was originally approved to what this plan represents.
Sure. Yeah, we can, trying to think, we can find a way to sort of make that stand out a little bit better. It is primarily landscaping besides the canopy, that being the other major change.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Sammy. Other questions or comments on this?
Mr. Hotney, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Chris, to follow up on what Ms. Cording stated, I'm afraid what I'm going to ask may have already been determined, but better be safe now. On Stewart Street, can you walk me through what are the current parking regulations on the side of the street adjacent to your property because of the bump out? Is it on-street parking, regulated parking? And during snow emergencies, what are the conditions? Meaning, is this a snow emergency arterial where there are no parking? Do you have a sense of what those conditions are? Because those are going to influence the visibility for snow plows to see the bump out, and I don't see any vertical devices within, because I was waiting for your landscape program to see what the heck you all are doing here. So can you walk me through what are the current parking conditions? Because if there is 24/7, 12 months a year parking, then the parked cars will be the vertical visual cue for the snow plows not to smash into the bump out. So can you walk me through all of those concerns, Chris?
Sure. So the existing condition and, well, at least the previous condition before this project would be there was a parking lot in this location, and so there's a pretty large curb cut, so there is no no street parking in the existing condition along this area. The proposed condition would be to, quite frankly, I'm not sure what the parking idea was for here. There's a curb cut here which would provide loading access for the building temporarily into this bay, which is unchanged from the originally approved plans. This bump out itself was a coordination between the project and BTD and the BPDA, and that was the decision that was made based on the potential for the future bike lane that's going to come down Stewart Street in this direction. This would basically, I think the idea being that this is removable, quote unquote, in the future, so that whatever ends up getting built permanently here could just easily be thrown in.
Is that an appropriate dimension, right? Like if we're gonna build out a cycle track, is that curb in the right spot so we can leave this and adjust it and continue rather than pulling this all out again?
Yeah, so I think we have an extension of the vertical granite curb coming along the backside here. So that would basically be that this island could be pulled out without really impacting any of the proposed like specialty sidewalk that we're proposing. The actual width of this, that was part of the coordination. We had originally looked at one that was coming, substantially further out and then looking at not having one at all. This was the direction that we had originally gotten from the city.
Chris, there's fair amount of noise at City Hall, so if you hear a vibration or whatever, that's or someone is hammering something. So I'm going to ask my questions quickly. Is Stewart Street a snow emergency arterial? I'm going to ask you binary questions because I don't think you answered my questions. Is it a snow arterial?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that.
Amy, do we know whether it's a snow arterial? Because right now my Chris, I'll say this for the last time. You need to make sure that the current parking regulations on Stewart Street is not going to impede Public Works' ability to plow snow along this roadway where the snow plow blades are going to smash into a bump out.
Okay.
Okay? So manage that and manage it and be prepared to answer these questions when they come for the public hearing. Thank you.
So Amy, I feel like we should probably get together and talk about that, what the future plans are for here so we can decide how this bump out.
Well, I think that we need to figure out what you're creating a new curb edge, right? Like, so what are we citing this as? What is this curbside use going to be? I think we want to answer that. I do remember us going back and forth on this bump out, but it seems to me that like it matters whether or not our intended facility here in the future would be a sidewalk level cycle track or a street level bike lane, because if it's going to be sidewalk level, I think we can get that outer curb in its eventual permanent location. So I think that that's kind of really where what's going to happen for the curbside usage here. If with this bump out that there should be some sign that appears at least on the leading edge of it so that it's obvious to a plow, to Para's point, so that there's not, if there's nothing here that you understand where the bump out is, and we can find out what the snow issue is here. I believe that existing condition has some sort of smaller bump out.
Yeah, there's a bump out today.
Yeah, as we change between roadway dimensions there. So like it's not, it's different, but it's not new, right? So,
Exactly.
but I do think that we had that whole driveway there. What's your curbside use in front of your building?
If it's a signage thing, we can work through that. As long as if the bump out needs to change, then I think that's a kind of a larger thing. But I think if it's a signage thing, then we can work with that.
Yeah, and I don't want to unwind the bump out situation. I just want to make sure that we're not 6 feet or 6 inches from it being in a place where we could leave it versus not.
Agreed.
I see you bending to meet existing catch basins, right? So like we are where we are and how far we can get out is how far we can get out. But if we can get that to a dimension that represents a potential future cycle track, then that makes sense. If that's not, this isn't a large enough area to make a huge difference, but it would be beneficial.
Okay.
And I think, and Amy and Para, tell me if I'm off on this, there is, so with the bump out today, there aren't any streetlights or anything like that within the bump out, but there is a BTD sign. We would just want to keep some sort of a movable vertical element like a BTD sign, sort of in that leading edge of the bump out in its final condition, but however it's designed.
That's all that is needed, Chris. Just anything that is vertical, that supports a sign, that gives the plow driver the knowledge that, gee, I better not have my brakes down, smashing into a.
Okay, yeah, it looks like there's a sign, there's a no right turn sign onto Church Street, and I think that's something that we would probably need anyways, since it's a pedestrian street, so we can replicate that at the edge of the bump out.
And I know that there is, that's pedestrian only, but that there is some potential maybe vehicle that goes up through there. Either way, the sidewalk at the end of this is not in great shape. And so I just want to make sure that we're building a sidewalk that can withstand, even though if it's pedestrian only, if we're taking a truck over this for maintenance or whatever it is, that we're not going to end up with the sidewalk looking the way it does today.
Yeah, we're planning on emergency access through here, so and the pavement section is reflective of that.
Right. So yeah, if that's a little bit thicker concrete, then that is better.
So if between now and the public hearing, sort of better define what has changed since our last set of PIC approvals, make sure that we're sort of updating the LMI to reflect that, have the conversation with street lighting around the potential conversion from gas lamps to electric lamps on, or LED lights on Stewart and Church, and then the exploration of the bump out, and then the surface conditions of Church Street that way.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, members of the commission? Todd or Avi?
All set.
All right, any members of the public?
I see none.
All right, Ryan, Chris, 2 weeks, enough time?
Yep.
All right, we'll see you on the 19th then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all. All right, that was our final agenda item. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Take care, all.